What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 15:42 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Baltic Sea. So, it looks like Russia cut another European cable in the Baltic Sea. This time, they cut one off the coast of Sweden's Gotland Island, which is a Swedish island in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And this cable goes from Germany to Finland. So Russia has already cut basically all of the cables connecting the Baltics to Finland and to the rest of Europe. And now they're attacking the cables that connect Finland to the rest of Europe. And what it seems like they're doing to me, and I could be wrong, it seems like they're cutting the cables before they go in and invade. Okay, so there's now only one electric cable connecting the Baltics to the rest of Europe. And all Russia would have to do is take out that one last cable, and then the entire Baltics would be in the dark. And now they're attacking these cables that connect Finland to Germany, okay? So this is very, very serious. Also, we have this very concerning situation in Australia today. So apparently 3 Chinese warships were conducting live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea this morning. And it got so serious that the Australian government had to divert civilian air traffic from the area. Okay, but a Chinese naval destroyer flotilla consisting of a Zunyi 055, 054A, and 903A sailed around the eastern coast of Australia, coming within approximately 100 nautical miles of Sydney, and they were doing live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea. Okay. The Australian Navy sent the HMS Arunta frigate to monitor the Chinese warships, and they also sent a P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter. Okay, so this is extremely concerning. And this morning and this afternoon, U.S. nuclear forces have been on very high alert. They've been transmitting what are known as emergency action messages. These are nuclear attack options that are transmitted from U.S. Strategic Command to our nuclear forces. And so far today, over 30 of these have been transmitted. And I don't know if it's related to what's going on in Australia or something else. I want to remind you guys that we're approaching the 3-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. So Russia could have some big strikes planned for Ukraine. Let me just show you what we have going on right now over North America. Here we have a nuke sniffer plane getting ready to take off from Anchorage. It arrived in Anchorage early this morning after leaving Offutt Air Base. This is a special plane used to detect radiation in the atmosphere, typically used to detect any nuclear tests or any kind of radiological situations like nuclear power plant meltdowns or leakages. So very interesting that it's in Alaska. Typically when they go to Alaska, they end up going to Okinawa, and they use Alaska as like a halfway point to transit the Pacific and go to Asia. So this could mean that potentially North Korea or China or Russia are going to be doing some kind of a nuclear test soon, or potentially Russia is going to be doing a nuclear test in the Arctic. So this is very, very concerning, and we know that over the last 2 days, Russia sent bombers to the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone 2 days in a row, and that's literally right after these peace talks that the Trump administration had with the Putin administration in Saudi Arabia. We have 2 nuclear war command and control planes up in the air right now. One took off from Travis Air Force Base and is heading to Utah. One was out in the Gulf of America. And then we also have a B-1 strategic or nuclear bomber airborne over the Black Hills. And what's interesting about this is the B-1 took off from Grand Forks, which means that the U.S. has already relocated the B-1s out of Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota to Grand Forks. And the reason why they did that is because they're expanding the runway and fixing the runway in Ellsworth in South Dakota to accommodate our B-21 bomber, the B-21 Raider, which is an upgrade from the B-2 Spirit, which is our current stealth bomber. It's part of the nuclear triad. It makes up the air leg of our nuclear triad. So they're replacing the B-2s with the B-21s, which are going to be autonomous as well as manned, okay? And they're going to be potentially piloted autonomously by AI, which is just totally insane. It's like something out of Terminator. But here you can see the 2 nuclear war command and control planes airborne, and then also this aerial refueler that's been flying near the border of Mexico. A lot of reconnaissance going on over here in Mexico near the Baja California Peninsula. And right now we have most of Ukraine under an air raid alert, so we got to be on high alert the next couple of days for any kind of massive Russian attack. What's very strange is over the last month or two, Russia has been doing these fake attacks with their bombers, and I think they're doing that to test Ukraine's radars and air defenses. So they basically deploy their bombers and pretend like they're going to launch missiles, but they stop and they turn around and go back to their bases rather than actually launch. And every time they do that, Ukraine turns on all their radars and all their air defenses, and then Russia can pinpoint those and see where they're located. But we also have some concerning news coming out of Russia. Russia is now accusing NATO of threatening their port infrastructure. They said that threats to Russia's port infrastructure from NATO have intensified, specifically since the war in Ukraine started. They talked about increased threats to maritime security, and they were accusing NATO of considering attacks against Russian oil terminals and maritime transport. Okay, so this could be the excuse that Russia needs to attack the Baltics and Poland. And this update was sponsored by NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. They're selling their 3-month emergency food supply for just $600, so that's $100 off the normal price. And this is 3 months of food at 2,000 calories per day, has a shelf life of up to 25 years, and all of this is packed into 6 rugged water-resistant buckets, and free shipping is included. And they're also offering a disaster replacement warranty. So if your food supply gets destroyed by a natural disaster, they'll replace it for you with no charge. And they also will provide you with free survival books and information, including a natural disaster field guide, a survival Bible digital copy. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $100 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply. And the link is in the description below this video. They could claim that NATO is building up too much in the Baltic Sea and it's interfering with Russian ships going in and out of Baltic, which is their port in the Baltic Sea. And Russia is apparently preparing to declare victory in the war against Ukraine by February 24th, according to Ukraine's defense intelligence. And Emmanuel Macron said that Europe needs a massive defense plan to face the growing threat from Russia. So very, very concerning. Massive defense plan. And France is the only independent nuclear power in Europe. Okay, France has a domestically designed and produced nuclear weapons program versus the UK gets all their weapons from the US. They get the Trident missiles from the US, but they make their own warheads. But in France, they make everything by themselves, okay? So France is basically taking the leadership now as the sole nuclear power in Europe. And a European diplomatic source told a leading Italian news agency that Trump plans to withdraw roughly 20,000 U.S. troops from Europe. The source told ANSA that Trump aims to reduce the American military presence on the continent by about 20% and intends to demand greater financial contributions from NATO allies to cover the costs of maintaining the remaining forces. Wow. And the Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that in order for there to be a meeting between Trump and Putin, Putin has to be serious about ending the war. And a source close to U.S. President Trump warned that Zelensky should urgently leave Ukraine. This was reported by the New York Post, basically like a threat. Okay, so somebody close to the president told the New York Post, listen, Zelensky, you should leave Ukraine and go to France. So that's pretty concerning. And Zelensky said that his meeting with Keith Kellogg, the special representative to Ukraine for the Trump administration, restores hope. A meeting that restores hope, and we need strong agreements with America, agreements that will really work. That's what Zelensky said. And U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson said at CPAC yesterday that there is currently no appetite for more aid packages for Ukraine. And President Trump gave Europe 3 weeks to agree to a peace deal that would surrender Ukraine to Russia, according to a member of the European Parliament. Finland's Mika Aaltola of the European People's Party claimed that the U.S. has given us 3 weeks to agree on terms for Ukraine's surrender. If we don't, the U.S. will withdraw from Europe. And Trump threatened to impose a 150% tariff on all BRICS countries if there's any attempt by BRICS to create an alternative to the dollar. Wow. And Russia launched 160 drones at Ukraine yesterday. Ukraine shot down 87 of them. And that's coming just 2 days after these big peace talks between the U.S. and Russia. So Russia clearly not respecting the U.S., not respecting the Trump administration. At this point, Putin feels unstoppable, okay? And I don't think he's afraid of Trump like he was during Trump's first term. We are living in some very dangerous times right now. Europe is talking about sending up to 30,000 troops into Ukraine. And all the while, the U.S. wants to pull troops out of Europe. So I think we're going to see this war kick off between Europe and Russia potentially this year. Okay, Russia is going to be moving 150,000 troops into Belarus for exercises this summer. And guys, you don't do exercises with 150,000 troops. Okay, that's a whole lot of troops to do exercises with, okay? That sounds like a forward deployment, and they did the same thing before they invaded Ukraine. So I think we're going to see it, guys. I think under the Trump administration, we're going to see a war between Europe and Russia. I think it's coming, guys, because Putin feels unstoppable at this point, and there's really nothing we can do to stop him, you know. So get prepared. Don't stop prepping, okay? Please do not stop prepping. Do not stop praying. Put your faith in Jesus Christ, not men, okay? Not politicians. Only Jesus can save you. Only Jesus can save the world. And in recent months, Russia and the U.S. have held unofficial talks in Switzerland, with one such meeting taking place last week in Geneva during the Munich Security Conference, Reuters reported, citing sources. According to these sources, the meetings occurred during the transition period following Donald Trump's election, and only a small number of advisors to the current president were aware of them. Meanwhile, the New York Post, citing sources close to Trump, reports that anti-Zelensky sentiments are increasingly surfacing in the Oval Office, including discussions about elections and a complete replacement of Ukraine's leadership. Wow. Okay, but secret talks in Switzerland for several weeks to months. Absolutely insane. And Hamas violated the ceasefire agreement with Israel yesterday by not returning the body of one of the hostages. So this is a very serious situation, and the U.S. has not stopped arms shipments and sales to Ukraine, according to a Ukrainian member of parliament. And this person refuted claims from another Ukrainian member of parliament who said that the U.S. had already stopped arms sales. So very interesting. And the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that terrorist groups around the world are being fueled by the weapons supply flowing from Ukraine. So that's the latest argument, is that Ukraine is giving all these groups around the world, including the cartels, weapons, which is total BS. And the U.S. Marshals deputized Elon Musk's private security, granting them federal law enforcement protections. Wow. And the New York Times reports that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reassured nervous European allies that talks with Russia did not represent an abrupt departure from American policies. Ultimately, Rubio is a nobody. It's up to Trump to make that call. And Russian hackers targeted Signal accounts in a growing espionage effort. Google's threat intelligence group has identified a rise in Russian state-backed hacking attempts to compromise Signal Messenger accounts. And I want to just show you guys some interesting activity yesterday. So here's the nuke sniffer that went from Offutt Air Base, home of Strategic Command, to Alaska. We also had a lot of reconnaissance near the Baja California area of Mexico last night. So the U.S. is continuing to monitor this area. My guess is we're going to see some strikes on Mexico, either from drones or other means, on the cartels. And we also had a U.S. recon plane flying over Wyoming and South Dakota east to west, looking north towards the Arctic. And here's a closer look at the recon near the Baja California Peninsula here. Okay, you can see one Customs and Border Patrol plane flying just to the west of Baja California, and a sub-hunter, P-8 Poseidon. This is a plane designed to detect submarines underwater, patrolled the border of Mexico and California. Very, very interesting. And then here's the recon plane that was deployed from U.S. Strategic Command, and it was flying east to west in Wyoming and South Dakota, which means that it was looking north and south because they have a side-looking radar and side-looking apertures. So it was looking up to the north. Potentially there were some more Russian bombers heading towards our airspace like in the last 2 nights. And then we had a bunch of Russian VIP planes leave Moscow last night. And we also had a Russian open skies plane fly up to Kazan. Now, these open skies planes were used back in the day for tracking missile tests and looking at U.S. nuclear missile facilities. So I don't know if Russia is planning to do a missile test soon. And some interesting information coming out from Richie from Boston. Not sure if you guys remember who he was. Back in the day, he used to have a huge YouTube channel with like 500,000 subscribers, and then YouTube canned him. They deleted him, and he's now on Rumble. Okay, but he posted this very interesting video about Doge stealing personal information to be used by Elon Musk's AI Grok. So very interesting theory that he's putting out here, and I recommend you guys check him out on Rumble. Richie from Boston. I have no affiliation with him. I'm not his friend. I just saw this. It came up in my feed, and I thought it was pretty concerning. Hopefully that's not true, but that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later or tomorrow with more breaking news. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you turn on all notifications. YouTube has been unsubscribing people from my channel, and the problem is when you resubscribe back, a lot of people naturally forget to turn on their notifications again. So make sure your notifications are turned on, and make sure you have it set to all notifications. Also, consider downloading my app. It's free in the Google Play Store. It's only for Android right now. We're developing an app for Apple. This way I can send out alerts directly to your phone, not reliant on social media. Also, you can follow me on Telegram and Twitter. I post all my updates over there. But until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.